Welcome to the latest edition of First State Kopites podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be rejoined by Charlie and Tim. Feels like the gang's getting back together again. And once again, we're delighted to have Daz on joining us from Baltimore. Well, today is February 13th, Saturday, February 13th, and Liverpool have managed to lose a third league game in a row. We'll be exploring that and perhaps trying to find the crumbs of comfort, I guess, that seem to be increasingly left in this season. We have 14 league games left, at least 2 Champions League games, and we're going to get on to talk about the upcoming game against RB Leipzig. One of the reasons Tim's joined us is because of his expertise around the Bundesliga, particularly around RB Leipzig. So we're going to be getting to talk about that. But first of all, we're going to get in and talk about the Leicester game, which happened this morning, 3-1. Fantastic performance for 79 minutes. And then a few things happened. Some of them involved Anthony Taylor, so we can definitely touch on refereeing. I'm going to lead off with Simon Brundish, an old friend of the podcast, pointed out that Liverpool have had an average of 1.25 VAR choices go against them every game. While that's not an objective decision, that's kind of hard to overcome when that many VAR decisions are going against you. Don't have to talk about VAR, but I'm going to go to you first, Charlie. If you've cooled down from this morning's performance, what are the things you're thinking about in terms of a takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what you said, we played well for a while, and then it just kind of collapsed in a hurry, which is now, I guess, a trend. I don't know, just I'm a little bit numbed, really, over the last couple of months, so I'm just not trying to get too high or too low with the wins or the losses, because it's just, at times, it's just farcical. The things that are going against us and have been since, I mean, not only at the beginning of the season, last season things were going against us with refereeing decisions and this sort of stuff, but we were just able to overcome it. And now it's just, I don't know what's more farcical, our injury situation or the way that the referees and VAR together are seemingly conspiring to just give the opposition 95% of what it could possibly hope for, and us 5%. And Taylor, I mean, that penalty that wasn't a penalty. How he called that a penalty in the first place? I mean, it was close. I don't know. It's just it just reeks of bias to me, and it's I used to get really angry about it, but now I have to expect it, because otherwise I'm just going to be really angry all the time, and I don't want to be really angry all the time. So
I think you've done a very smart thing by extracting yourself from a whole ton of social media, because this morning it would have been really easy to get hyped up by some of the anger. I love what you said, though, about what's more farcical, the refereeing or the injuries. It is worth pointing out that we lost Milner after 15 minutes today and brought on a player who apparently hasn't trained for most of the week, just kind of adding to that. And then Simon Brundish again talked about how Mane was pushed in the back in the sequence immediately before the Barnes penalty. The thing my son pointed out to me,
it was the second goal.
Is there a second goal that came from?
Second goal, yeah. Because I was like, what? Nothing. Yeah. And I went back and watched it 2 or 3 times, and it's not like that. It's he extends, and because Mane's feet is planted, he just goes down in a heap. Taylor stands there, looks at it. I'm like, is he waiting for? What's he waiting for here? Is he waiting for us to see if we get advantage out of this? Yeah. He kicks it away, goes to someone else, they hump it up the pitch. Next thing you know, it's in the net.
Okay. So how I was trying to link it was the Barnes penalty. I don't know if you've gone back and looked at this, but my son pointed out he does this weird thing like the starfish. So both his legs are kind of at an angle, trying to make sure that one of Thiago or Trent he makes connection with. And it's like, yep, they're giving that stuff all the time now. But how that is more of a foul than the things that happen to Salah and Mane on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, I know one team they're not giving that to all the time these days.
Yeah, it happened in the box in the first half on Mane.
Yeah.
It was exactly the same thing. He got kicked in the top corner of the box,
yep.
And he went over. They didn't even look at it, I don't think. Or if they did, they were very quiet about it.
And I've gone to this theme before, and I'll go to you next, Tim, but I've gone to this theme before, but I do think that someone ought to make a link between this no room for racism and the sort of inherently, what seems to me, racist commentary, where Salah or Mane goes over, and it's like, oh, they went over too easily. And Sir Harry Kane, I must have said this a lot of time, goes over, and it's like, oh, he's really cute there. He was really smart.
Right.
Oh.
He made the most of that one, didn't he?
Right. Yeah. So, Tim, what are you focusing on after today's game?
Well, I texted Charlie this morning to say that it's an unpopular opinion, but with Thiago on the bench this morning, I thought the team looked brilliant. Because there's been much made in the social media world the past couple of weeks about is Thiago changing Liverpool's game? Is the downtick in production, is that coming as a result of him slowing the game down? And it seems much ado about nothing, because much like Keita, you look at his stats, you look at the breakdown of what he's actually done in a game, and it's all brilliant. Yeah. So I didn't necessarily put any stock in it. And it could have just been a coincidence that that the team came out on fire this morning, and he just happened to not be in the lineup. But no sooner had I mentioned that Milner pulled up lame, and here comes Thiago putting on his little shin pads. So, and I don't think they necessarily dropped off. I think we kept the high rate going. So maybe that kind of disproves that right there. It was definitely towards the end of the first half, as the Proudfoot and Beglin pointed out, Leicester was dominating because they had 1.5 shots, one of which was offside. But it did feel like there was a bit of a momentum shift for whatever reason. And I think it's because they started playing a little Route 1, as Vardy is wont to do. He was dangling and playing typical Jamie Vardy games, which it seems like when we get beat badly, that's what we get beaten by. And that's, I think, where it shows up most, that, we've got, well, now 3 healthy senior center backs, just 2 that have never really played in Liverpool. Right. So I hope that that's going to get better, but I really think that that's the key. I was saying that, like, this is how I expected our season to go when Virgil went down against the Bitters. And I was shocked. I thought we were achieving at a remarkable level, moving up into first place without that. And then when Joe went down and just maintaining, and I think it's just been too much for too long. So I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know if there's a Thiago question, but the thing I'm most taking away from what you said is his shin pads were really small, weren't they?
It was I think he stole them from Jack Grealish.
Yeah.
Like padded postage stamps.
Yeah.
But they're carbon fiber, so they're strong.
So one of the things that I felt like I noticed, and again, I was mentioning before we started recording, I've started taking notes so that I'm kind of, on point with this, but was their desire to find fouls on our right-hand side. Like a number of times, Barnes went over and Maddison went over. Not sure all of these things were there was.
He made the most of it. He didn't go down easy.
Right. They were smart about it. Yeah, but it seemed to me they were really trying to get free kicks on that area for Maddison to hoof them in, and of course, eventually, it paid off for them, even if we ignored the potential offside.
Yeah, well, picking up that reminds me of a Tompkins article I read recently, where it is talking about our effectiveness attacking and defending set pieces has been severely hindered by the fact that all of our injuries are to the taller players, and now Fabinho too, It's like, you got to be kidding me. It's just, and which apparently led to the situation where Minamino couldn't get a shot because he was just too short in a team of short players. I don't, you would have a lot more advantages over Origi, but Origi brings something that you cannot offer.
He brings 6'3"-ness, right? That's, yeah.
Something like that.
So Daz, I know you were kind of going back and forth with Sean this morning about the game. Hopefully, with a bit of perspective, not too many hours have passed. What do you make of it all? What are you kind of focused on?
Honestly, the first 75 minutes were a complete performance. One thing I did want to say is, like, every time that I hear that those comments regarding how our foreign players go over and they're diving bastards versus the clever cloggers that invite the fouls, it's like that meme from the Family Guy where they have the skin color chart and it's white and off-white, a little less white is clever bastards, and then the bottom half and the color chart is, or the darker colors are all diving twats.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the point I was making. I think for the first 3 quarters of that game, we were exemplary. I think we used that week off really well. You could tell that Thiago wasn't on it. There was a couple of times he doesn't have the speed to be able to knock it past someone and go. Like, every now and again, you'll see him. He'll drop a shoulder and he'll leave someone for dead because their ankles are tied in knots. But if it's a foot race, he's almost like a cheetah. He gets pushed off the kill very easily. You could see that he was a step off. And again, this is nitpicking, but I don't necessarily think. And Tim, I'm not detracting from what you're saying, because I know that this has been in the larger Twitter sphere or the larger punditry sphere for a while, that people are taking swipes at Thiago, like, what does he offer? Is he worth what we paid for him? Does he fit into this team? Are we building it around him? All those questions. I don't think it was that big of a drop-off. We moved the ball quickly. And I think that Kabak didn't really have much to do in the first 60 minutes or so, because we throttled them at the top of the pitch. They couldn't get out, and anything that did come out went straight back at them for like a good 60 minutes. And they are a professional team, and they are third in the league, so they managed to fashion a couple of half chances, which you'd expect. You know, it's not always going to be attack versus defense from a team that's third in the league. And then it happened. And the thing is, like, there weren't any real signs of it either. We could have had them buried by probably the 30-minute mark in the first half. Yeah. There was 2 or 3 that we had probably a hatful of chances, and little half chances where you had to take in the shot better, a little bit better decision making. There was one where Mane passed it behind Salah instead of in front of him. There was one where Salah put over the top and it bobbled off his nuts, and he couldn't quite get the shot off. And a sharper team that we would have put those away, and we would have been 2-3 up by half time. And you can just see we've lost our fangs. It's almost like it's become like a self-fulfilling prophecy now that we're not going to bag them, and then the heads go down, and you see it happen game after game. Massive amounts of possession, we pour it on. Everything you want from what we've put together over the last 3 seasons, we're doing it well, and as well as we could, because obviously we have some gaps in ranks, and I thought we played really well today. I'd honestly say it was probably one of our best managed games this season up until that point. And then it just became, like I said, it's almost like, oh, here we go again, and the shoulders slump, the heads go down, and the third goal was a perfect example of that. Like, Kabak is kettled. He was absolutely kettled, and Barnes didn't have a fingerprint on him. He just kind of waltzed through. My one concern is that with 3 gifts from 2 games from Ali, that something's creeping in. He made a couple of great saves, and to that point, he was fantastic. He did everything he needed to do. He made a couple of saves. He was distributing the ball a lot quicker. It was much better. And then you could just see that it rushed the blood to the head. And I had this argument with Sean about, I don't know too many keepers that aren't loud enough to know that when they're coming for the ball, it's keeper's ball. Like, and I've played AL leagues to Sunday AL leagues to pretty high level, and every goalkeeper I've ever played with has always been it's keeper's ball and he goes through it, and if you're in the way, then you get cleaned out. So I think Sean was saying that Klopp said he didn't hear anything from Ali. I don't know. It's concerning now. I think there's a big enough body of evidence that he does have these brushes of blood to the head, and I'm hoping that he's not trying to play himself out of it and he's overdoing it.
Yeah, I do suspect the beginning thing today there was a bit of overdoing it. The thing with Kabak was a bit of overdoing it. Like I got this, and it's like, oh, maybe you don't.
Yeah. You got a new centre back in there is probably in a little earlier than we would have wanted, and I think it was a bit of protection, a little bit overdoing that.
Yeah,
he's already out of his comfort zone. I mean, that's just yeah.
Well, you could see that Kabak was playing with a team. To me, like he wasn't really pressured at all. Like they didn't offer much. There was the one where the ball went into the channel and Vardy had like that little looping lob that went over into the top of the net. And I was like, that was a warning shot that like, look, this guy's got some wheels. He can hurt you. And he came up wanting a little bit there. Look, I'm not bombing him out of hand. I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It was a horrible first experience for him. Like I struggle to think of a centre back that had a tougher first game than like in terms of the way that it panned out than it did for Kabak. And my heart goes out to him, but that's what we brought you in for, mate.
So a couple of things. So we do want to do a bit of a deeper dive into what may be going on. But one of the things that does concern me, frankly, about Kabak is how many games he's played on the losing side in the last 12 months. You can be really good, but keeping on losing isn't really very helpful to have like an adventurous, positive mindset. So let's go kind of a little bit deeper, and you sort of what do we think is going on, and there's lots of things to choose from. We've already touched on injuries. We've talked about VAR decisions. We haven't mentioned today, but we have before, like the absence of crowds, and that allowing the opposition to kind of take 30 seconds to a minute over corners and free kicks, which kind of gives them breathing time especially when they're pressed like Leicester were today. Klopp in his interview, I didn't see the interview, and we don't think any of us have seen the interview, but he did say he wasn't happy about the response to going 2-1 down. That wasn't kind of what he expected. And then there's just some stuff about fatigue in terms of we have got so many players who've played an average of 4,000 minutes the last 3 years. Van Dijk would have been among them had he finished this season. So clearly there's, that's a problem from many perspectives not having him. What do you make of what maybe I don't believe it is one thing, but what do you think is the most critical thing, and therefore the most critical thing to address going forward? And I'll go back to Charlie with the question.
Well, it's a result of a number of things, mainly the injuries, but the midfield. The fact that our midfield, we've lost so many midfielders to either other duties or injury. You would have really hoped this season was Naby Keita's kind of breakthrough season. Ox, you'd hope by now he was back up to the form that he was, showing before he got that injury against Roma. Fab would have been great to have him in the midfield. Henderson, Curtis is a great, really good positive. But other than that, and Thiago then would have been able to fit into an already established midfield and just, pick and choose when you slot him in, and you'd have a number of different options from our go-to midfield from last season. So I just think that the midfield's been absolutely decimated, and that was really the nucleus, the thing that made this whole team click, because they didn't have to worry about what was behind them at all, not one bit. With those three, no problem at all there. And so that, you know, it's just been a ripple effect. I can't believe Genie is playing as much as he is. And I'm not surprised that we're probably not going to re-sign him given the number of minutes he's, you know, clocked up, not only this season, but the prior seasons. So it's almost like, well, I kind of use him and abuse him. And then, you know, thanks for your service. You know, we'll miss you, but, you know, there's so many different things, but the midfield has definitely not been helped this season.
Yeah, but probably coalesces in the midfield, right? So I guess part of my question was, and I'll go to you, Tim, was what do you think in terms of all the things that are going wrong? Clearly, we're not going to fix VAR in our favor anytime soon, as an example. But what are there some things that we can do with the remaining, hopefully more than 16 games, but at least the next 16 games?
Yeah, I mean, I think hopefully time allows the new boys to kind of get settled in. You know, hopefully Kabak develops with the potential, which the rumors have been that he has the potential to develop with. Hopefully Davis, you know, the same way. I think Nat Phillips has been sound for us. I think if we can get a solid pair of actual center backs in, I think that can only help. As far as I think that it's no secret anywhere in the world that the officiating in the Premier League is a bit of a joke. I can say that because I don't have to worry about getting fined like the players do. But one of the things that I've wondered is, it seems this season, like we were talking before we started recording about how prickly the boss has been because of things in his personal life, and then also just with the decisions that we've been getting against us this season. And I wonder if that hasn't made it a bit worse, if, you know, the officials aren't a little bit inclined to tilt the field in the advantage of our opponents just because he's always so vocal about how this decision went against us, and almost to the point of being whiny this year. And so I wonder if, kind of, for the sake of our game and for the sake of our mental well-being, if us dropping off and thus maybe feeling a little bit less pressure can't help that also. Like maybe Klopp is a little bit less vocal about the officials, and maybe the officials turn their ire upon a different team who's a little bit more competitive and feeling it. I don't know. That's reaching, I'm sure.
Well, whole new set of referees might help, but
yeah, mass wave of retirements. Let's do it.
Yeah, when is this current awful lot due for retirement? Like, come on, guys, time to put you out to pasture.
Yeah. So I think we have talked before about just kind of commandeering Michael Oliver and having him refereeing every game, because, you know, we might not have every decision our way, but at least there's, you know, some sense of competence and balance.
He was in charge of the Everton game, remember?
But he learned his lesson.
But he wasn't the VAR guy, right?
Well, he's since admitted that there was no reason to not red card Pickford on an offside.
Doesn't help us.
No,
right.
I get that.
I understand, but it's like, you know, even
3 months later, he admitted it.
We were used to getting at least a fair game from. Every now and then, we don't even get that.
Well, you know, I'm pretty sure we're not hearing from, you know, Taylor, Moss, Atkinson, blah 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 blah, that I messed something up. That's the one thing that I would say. That
yeah, right.
Yeah. So just to round out this question, a lot of stuff we can attribute this to. Anything we can do to fix it, like by Tuesday, would be a really great thing. So, I'm not sure there is anything by Tuesday, but anything in your mind, Daz, that we should be kind of looking to do?
I'm not sure how Klopp gets them back to the winning mentality. You can sense it in the team that it's almost perfunctory at this point. They're going through muscle memory, but without the belief that it'll pull them across the line. You know, and I'm the same as Charlie now about the VAR. Like, this was brought in to stop this kind of thing, and it just seems to have exacerbated it.
Mm-hmm.
It's to have it taken away from you when you're playing a really good game like that. It's crushing. But one thing that we haven't talked about, and I think that is going to have to be talked about, is kind of the Bobby size hole we have up front. Don't get me wrong, I loved what he did today. That assist was peak Bobby. But outside of that, he's like a possession arrow, the possession change arrow. It's the number of times that he was caught in possession, like and inside their half, and that comes right back down our throat. He just doesn't seem to be the same type of player. We spend more time wanting the old Bobby back than actually watching the old Bobby play, and it's hamstringing us. So as a result, you're looking at Mane's trying to put it on his back, or Salah's trying to put it on his back, and sometimes they're forcing it when they don't need to. The third goal actually comes from Salah picking up the ball, drifting inside, passing a ball directly to them, and 3 touches later, it's in the back of the net. And that happens frequently. It's you take the good with the bad, but it can be a bit frustrating. And to see Bobby's almost looks like he's just going through the motions. I think that we are going to have to address that in the off season. I'm not sure Jota's that, but I think, to make a long story even longer, I think that if Klopp can get them to start believing in themselves again, and I know that it's going to be tough for him because like he's in a world of psychological and emotional pain right now as well. So yeah. If he can get them to start believing in themselves, despite all of the injuries, despite the bad calls, despite the bad luck, all of that, he just has to let them get them to believe that by and large, these are the same gang of lads that played some of the most scintillating football that I've ever seen, and definitely part of the best team that I've ever seen. And I was around in the 80s and watching Liverpool play. So if he can get them to start believing in it, and honestly, Leipzig would be a great place to start. It's in a neutral location. Not that it really matters because there's no fans anyway, but that if I still believe, and this is my ray of sunshine, we have 14 matches left. By all accounts, it looks like Naby's getting closer. We're going to have Jota back in a couple of weeks. It'll give us the reinforcements that we need, and potentially a different look too, because we have run with the same, we show up the same game plan week in and week out. And I'm not saying that we've been found out, but people are they've definitely accounted for what we're likely to do, and they're more likely to try and stop us from doing that. Whereas if you bring Jota Keita in, it gives you a completely different look. So with 14 matches left, I still think that we will make Champions League next year.
We need a little Ted Lasso, right?
Maybe we need. So that I feel like
the whole Ted Lasso.
There's a whole different conversation, not just about Ted Lasso, to be had around Firmino, because I think, and I was reading this somewhere else, I think there's a case to be made that actually when you give Bobby the ball early and quickly, then he's far more impactful. And one of our issues is, like, the goal today was about an injection of pace from Trent that didn't happen a lot of the other times. And so when Firmino did have a chance to do something, they were not set to cover him in the same way. So I do want to make sure we get to talk about RB Leipzig before we're done. But let's come back to, as the games unfold for the next 14 or more, kind of where we are with the front three, and kind of what kind of support they're getting from everybody else. I'm going to pivot awkwardly to RB Leipzig. So I'm going to go to Tim because he is our covert RB Leipzig insider.
There it is. I wore my official from Thailand jersey.
Mute.
So my first question is, do you have a conflict of interest on Tuesday?
Delete, unsubscribe.
Are you an agent or a double agent?
Agent provocateur.
He's frozen.
In your face.
That feels really intentional, doesn't it? That really does. So I'm going to wait till he comes back.
It's a nice freeze frame. Someone take a screenshot of this so he can see his freeze frame.
Let's quickly do that.
Oh, he's back.
I was like, man, he was upset. I didn't know he kicked me offline. Cripes.
Hopefully you didn't hear everything they said.
Push the big red button.
But there was a question about your allegiances on Tuesday. That did come up.
There's no question. There's one team that I'm a member of. I'll leave it there.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
What does an RB Leipzig membership card? No, just kidding.
Yeah. I just bought a proper from the club Liverpool shirt this week. So.
Oh, nice. Do you have a name on it?
I got Shaqiri.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I got it after his assist on Mo's goal that one a week ago against West Ham.
Yeah.
I said, oh, that's it. He's still my boy. I love him.
See, we haven't talked about, there's been some spectacular Salah goals amongst all the rest of the crap.
Still going to get a golden boot, so we're still going to get one
leading,
trophy.
Right?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, one season wonder. Anyway, big conversation to be had about Salah and kind of what happens next, obviously. But let's talk about RB Leipzig. So what I know is not very much, but I do know that they rested a couple of players on Friday night before the head of the game, including Upamecano, who we were once alleged to be in for, but apparently he's going to Munich anyway.
We are not going to get Upamecano, and it's probably just as well, because I think he's a more expensive version of Kabak, to tell you the truth. Okay. He probably has a higher ceiling, but they both make a lot of dumb mistakes. So if we're going to pay for dumb mistakes, it's better that we pay a little bit rather than a lot of it. But they sat out some of the midfield players. And actually, as we were just talking a bit about Firmino and form, one of the things that struck me, I think we don't do at Liverpool quite as well as Julian Nagelsmann does with Leipzig, is switch it up. Because when I watch Leipzig games, you never know what form they're going to play from week to week. Sometimes they play 3 at the back, sometimes they play 4 at the back. And I think that can be a hard thing to prepare for. But that's what they're able to do when they sit players. So it's like, okay, we're going to sit some of our best midfielders. So this week we're going to play 4 at the back instead. But then when we come against them on Tuesday, they may play 2 wide wingers in the midfield and do something that way. So it's something I wonder if Klopp will do at some point.
What do you think they will do on Tuesday?
I think when they play the wide midfield, it's technically a 3-back, but it can morph the same way that our defense morphs. It can morph into a 5-back. So I think that's what we'll see. Just because, Liverpool are in a slump, but Liverpool are still Liverpool, and you still have to defend against Salah and Mane.
Yeah.
And so I think the more bodies back there, the better.
Who should we look out for in terms of threats? Because clearly, we've not got the back line we'd ideally like to have.
Right. I was trying to think about it, and I think a familiar foil from watching some City games last year, easy for me to say, Angelino in an American accent.
Yeah.
Is the guy that they play. He'll either be at left back or at left midfield. And I think he might give Trent some fits because he's got some speed coming down that wing and cutting in from the outside there. So that one worries me a little bit, especially if we play one of the newer guys in that right center back role.
Yeah. He lit it up against United, right?
Yeah, he sure did.
He also
has been tailing off a bit, but
yeah. He also did have a bit of a horror show for City against us at Anfield when we beat them 3-1.
That's right.
So hopefully he'll have the same memories that Semedo has of playing.
Why he got sold.
What's that, Daz?
Probably why he got sold is that 3-1 performance against us. I didn't see him too much after that.
No.
Not that I was looking for him.
Yeah, and just to talk some trash about Pep, I think he used him completely inappropriately. So I think, Leipzig is just using him more as the player that he is rather than the player that they wanted him to be.
Yeah.
I thought he was your toilet brush.
Or he was at City, so yeah.
More the plunger.
So it's interesting. I haven't seen much of Leipzig, but what I have seen in European games, he's looked far more accomplished going forward than Zinchenko, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So, which to your point about like, was he using him in the right way?
Yeah, I think a left midfield is more his spot, or even maybe a left wing. He doesn't have I think he's 5'9", maybe.
So
the thing that doesn't necessarily make me anxious about Leipzig is, since Timo Werner, like, say what you will about how rubbish he's been at Chelsea this year, he's taken a huge aspect away from the attacking. Is that there's not really any speed that you're going to have to worry about. It's not going to be a fast-paced game.
Yeah,
I think in years past, Leipzig were all about a transition game, and now they've started some matches without like any recognized center forward even playing. Basically like a 6-wide midfield instead.
The Guardiola school, right?
Yeah. So that I'm a bit worried there may be a bus parked there, and we might just be, facing a battle of like who can sneak through. And I think it'll probably be Mane and Salah who can turn the speed up there, because there's some speedsters, but there's not a whole lot of speed going on there. So
interesting. So how did they do on Friday? I didn't.
2-1 against a pretty low on the table team.
Okay.
It's been a very frustrating season to be a Leipzig and Liverpool fan, because we've been winning some of the same games and losing some of the same games, losing games against teams you should win, or tying teams that you should probably beat. So I think it's actually a pretty fair matchup. Unfortunately for me in my Champions League rooting, I would like to see both teams advance, but that's not going to happen. So,
well,
of course, we're not going to be wearing our world champion badges any longer. Shame to see that come to end.
That's a very sad. Yeah, it's funny. I saw the Anfield shop was saying last chance to get your World Club badge. It was like, well, it's a bit weird. And then I noticed later on in the day that Bayern Munich were playing Tigres.
Yeah. Oh, they stayed one ahead with that. I never heard about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Instagram. That's all I saw. But I'm like, all right, that's it.
Right. Yeah. So final word then on. Well, let's quickly. What? So we'll start with you, Tim, and anyone else can chime in. Kind of what would your prediction be for the game in Hungary? It's supposed to be a home leg for Leipzig. Well, goodness knows where our home leg is going to be played.
Yeah, that's another one where they said that might have to be on a neutral venue as well.
Yeah,
because if they came to play in Liverpool, they would have to quarantine for 2 weeks upon returning back to Germany.
Right. I'm not sure what the issue is from my perspective. Do we care about that?
Exactly, right. Come to our house, enjoy.
It's a you problem.
Yeah.
I think it'll be tight. I think we can nick it. Like I said, I think if we can break through. Leipzig's defense is very solid, but I think the speed kills. So if we can kind of get the troops together, if we can get back into a decent mental state in the next 2 days, I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. So I wouldn't even be surprised if it was a 0-0 tie, to tell you the truth. I think it's going to be a defensive battle more than anything else. And it's just going to be about trying to steal an away goal, which I still would still be an away goal for us, but not for them, even though it's in Hungary, right?
Yeah. There won't be any sense of like Thiago flashbacks for them. He's not one of those teams that he's played fantastically well against, is there?
No, I don't think so. And actually I was looking it up to see if how he did it or how Kabak did when he had played Leipzig earlier, but that was when he was in his five game ban for spitting on someone, so he did not play Leipzig earlier this season.
Right.
So,
well, I also noticed last weekend, Leipzig won 3-0, and then I noticed, it's against Schalke. Doesn't everyone beat them 3-0? So that was, yeah. And Kabak clearly had moved on by then. So
Schalke with Mustafi.
Yeah. Who was directly responsible for at least 2 of those goals, just for all the Arsenal fans out there.
We have tons of them watching. Yeah.
Only people that do.
What's that, Daz?
It's the only people that do.
That's why we don't get comments. We might now. Yeah. It's certainly less hostile than Arsenal fan TV. That's for sure. Yeah. So Daz, what's your expectations for Tuesday? Now you've got the inside view of our opponents.
You know what, man? I'm tired. I just don't know. I don't know what if we can if we can limit our mistakes, or we don't gift them anything. I think it's going to be a tighter game than Leipzig would probably want it to be. I watched that Leipzig United game, and they tore them apart. It should have been 6 or 7-0 at the end of the first half. Like, Leipzig were missing sitters. So it was interesting to hear Tim say that they're not necessarily a transition team anymore, because like they poured it on every time they got the ball. They nicked the ball away from United in midfield, and they were terrifying to watch. So if that team shows up, it could be a torrid time for us. Yeah. But we do need to, if Klopp can say, like, look, take the Premier League completely out of your mind. Let's make this competition our competition. Because I've watched some of the other teams. Barcelona is a shade of their former self. I'd even argue that Bayern aren't quite the unit that they were last year either. But I guess we could have a broader conversation around what the pandemic has done to all kinds of teams, because a lot of teams don't seem to be themselves, and that could be down to the congested schedule, no fans, blah, blah, blah. We've mentioned them numerous times, but I honestly think if he manages to say, like, look, this is our competition. We had Madrid by the absolute balls in the second leg, and then, funnily enough, a couple of mistakes, and we lost the tie. So I just don't want to see us play tight. And I think that that's what's going to happen, is because now, when I said with Ali, I think that now everyone's looking around. It's like the doubt has started to creep in. Don't get me wrong, he's still a fantastic goalkeeper, but there's going to be a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of pause. We might be like 2 yards deeper, where we need to be 3 yards further up the pitch. I think that Klopp's going to do it by the numbers. It'll be a paint by numbers affair, I think. And I don't think you're going to see us swinging for fences. I think it's just going to be go there and do a job.
So, Charlie, final word on Leipzig. I think Daz had us looking ahead to the next few rounds. I don't know if I'm ready to even think about who else is in the competition. How about you?
5-3.
5-3.
Liverpool.
On Tuesday?
Okay, good.
On Tuesday?
Liverpool. 5-3.
Not on aggregates, just on Tuesday.
Just on Tuesday. Just
Okay.
because I'm going to be completely contrary.
Who's kicking for posts?
No, to be fair,
What the hell?
Leipzig did lose.
It's going to be maybe a defensive battle, like Tim said, but both defenses suck. It's going to be like at least 2 own goals. So it's going to be great.
Yeah.
5-3, and you know what? I don't care.
5-3. So clearly, you're telling us you're not coming back on anytime soon, unless it's 5-3.
I'd love to come back on that. No, I'm just saying that. At this point, I'm in it for the ride, and I'm hoping for some good results. Certainly not expecting any bad, because expecting a bad result and then getting a bad result, that just ruins your whole week. Whereas just getting a bad result at the end of the week, that only ruins one day.
Well, that's maybe till Tuesday. Well, okay. Well, after watching this, all thing is.
3-5. I guess I want to just amend my call. And so
with a drop goal.
If it's anywhere near that, I expect another guest appearance next week.
Absolutely. If it ends up being 5-3, like next weekend, we're back on, and you can bring your crystal ball, and we'll plan out the rest of the season. Okay, all right. That's probably a good place to leave it. We, obviously we play Everton next weekend. I think a lot depends on sort of how we come out of the Leipzig game around that one. Actually, I'm going to close with someone shared this with me today, because there's obviously been a lot of negativity the last couple of weeks on social media about all sorts of things, and I think there's plenty of things for us still to be kind of just excited about having experienced the last couple of years. But anyway, here comes. I don't know who this is from, but it's someone who replied to a Jamie Carragher post about today's game. It said, "Shut up and stop moaning. Give them a break and get off their backs. 16th centre-back pairing in 23 games. Heart of the team ripped out. Captain and best midfielder has played probably less than 10 games in the correct position. And our second best midfielder, less than that. Record number of Premier League injuries just by December. Stop moaning and get behind our team. We're a club with the greatest fans in the world. Now give your head a serious wobble and support us. Don't moan like the other lot across the park. We aren't a hobby club run by an oligarch or a country. We don't have 750 million plus defenders to bring on. Come on, you mighty Reds. You'll never walk alone." Feels like a good place to end. Charlie, Tim, Daz, thanks for joining us. I feel better already.